This is the Unscripted Climb, the podcast where business owners talk about stuff that doesn't make it to motivational speeches. I'm Chris Beecham, founder of Perch Merch, where we put your logo on things people might actually keep. I co-host this with Natalie McCauley, founder of Oh Hello Agency. She makes brands look like they have their act together. If you want a free merch or brand audit, we do that too. No pressure. Just don't blame us if we're honest. Go to theunscriptedclimb.com. Let's get going. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Unscripted Climb mini episode. So last episode, we were talking about branding, and today we're going to talk about brand strategy.
Yes, which is also part of branding.
What?
I just had to point that out. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Listen, it was, important for us to tell people what a brand was and for them to start to understand it. If you didn't hear that, go back, listen to the first episode. These 10 episodes we're doing, the first mini marketing episodes, you and I plotted this out and we're really hitting it from the top. This is how you start with a brand all the way down to how you build your marketing strategy. And so today is episode number 2 and it's brand strategy and positioning.
What I also like about this is we're doing it. Like right now we're doing it with Perch Merch and Oh Hello is, and
we're helping you so we can talk about the process.
Yeah, because I always thought I knew, but it turns out I didn't know. I did. I always thought I was smarter than a marketing agency or social media or, and I realized I am not. And you guys are only going to help my life.
You're so sweet.
But it's
so
true,
kind.
Yeah. It's hard to give up that sometimes, though.
Well, it's hard to understand if it really matters because when you see a proposal for branding and it's such an intangible thing, you can't really calculate the ROI on it in the moment versus, let's say, a digital ad that we could put up for you on Facebook where we can look at the return on that and how that operated and all the stats. But the thing is, really strong branding, and let's get more specific here, really strong brand positioning has a flywheel effect on your entire business for the next 2 to 3 decades. That's what it does. And it's so hard to do, but the companies that do it really well have decided we are going to take a stance. We are going to position ourselves on the sides of a very specific consumer. So when they come to our socials, when they engage in our emails, when they call the phone, they know who we are and what we stand for because we have strong brand positioning. And we're actually crafting that for you right now. So I want to talk about some of the work that we're doing and some of the work that you can do as an entrepreneur to do this well. First is you really have to get to know your customers. And the way that I've been able to start to understand your customers is by talking to you and your team, coming into your office, having conversations about your best customers and the customers that maybe you don't want as many of, right? You really have to build a strong audience buyer persona. And we're going to actually continue to do that together in our buyer persona strategy session we're going to have over the next 3 weeks. And a strong buyer persona is going to have everything you need to know about your target customer. And it's not just about how you interact with them. Your buyer persona should also outline the things they care about, the things that they worry about, the things that are on their mind when they sleep at night and on their mind when they wake up in the morning. You should be able to get that when you see your buyer persona. Once you've got a buyer persona, second step is interviewing people that you know are in that audience and validating like a scientist, right? We have a hypothesis on who we think your audience is based on everything you're telling me about your customers. But we can't really validate that until you or people on your team go do some interviews and ask some hard questions. So before you just decide, all right, we're going to take these bold stances and we're going to be, this brand and this is what we're going to stand for, you need to think about your customer and who you want to work with, who you want, outline your buyer persona, go talk to them, and do a little bit of market research. So,
and when you say them, you were kind of talking about your current clients, right?
Yeah, your current clients.
Because I really liked that.
If you don't like your current clients, then go get people that you want to be your clients.
Because that also made me reflect. Because you were like, "Who are your favorite clients and why?" And I could name them.
Yep.
And I'm sure any business owner you could name your top 3 favorite clients.
And as we get into building,
and then you start analyzing that person, those people.
Yes. And as we get into building the site, what I'll have you do is I'll have you go talk to more people who you want to be your clients, get some answers to them, and we'll tighten up that buyer persona even more. So sorry to interrupt. That was actually a really great reflection back to me that you heard what I was saying. And I think that so many people forget this step and they skip it because they assume that they know what their customer wants.
Yeah.
Do not assume.
So just assume they want their customer service. Good customer service, right?
Correct. So that's phase one, right? Yeah. And phase two, after you've interviewed your customer and you've validated some things, is you got to look at the market. You got to look at the competition. How are they positioning themselves? You want to sound like everybody else? You know, I see a lot of old school merch shops. They've been around for a long time. They're not really making any bold moves in their branding. They might, you know, do great service and have great things going on, but they're not doing anything like really interesting, which is why I think I was so excited when we talked about making your brand pop and really bold, because there's not a lot of brands in the merch area doing that, right?
Yeah.
If everybody was doing that, I would say, all right, we got to figure out another way to zag as they zig. So competition, look at the competition, look at what messaging they're putting out, what stories are they telling, who are they aligning themselves with? If everybody is sponsoring, you know, golf events to reach everybody, do you want to do that same thing, or do you want to go find a new place, a new white space? So that's part two of it, right? Is look at the competition. Part three of it is actually sit down with your key executives or your leadership team or the stakeholders in your business and talk about what your customer cares about in one Venn diagram and what you care about as a company in another, and find the middle ground, right? That is great brand strategy. That means you got to take a bet on the future, okay? Really great brands take bets on the future. Liquid Death took a bet on the future. When they came out 5 to 6 years ago, maybe it was 4, this water can thing was not a thing. But they could see the future and evolution of where the beverage brands were moving. They did their research. They did their homework. They could see that more people are going sober, that more people care about their health, and that water was becoming something like an emotional support social media thing that you want to put on, like your Stanley, and you could show your personality by what you drink. They took a bet on the future and built a brand that they knew their consumers were going to care about.
And they picked a badass name.
You
know, which also helps.
Last piece of this, after you're sitting in a room and you get to, you know, mind meld with people around you who have a say in the brand and the company and have a voice, right? After you talk about, you find in the middle, okay, this is what our customers care about. This is what we care about. This is what the market's doing. This is what our competition is doing. That is where you start putting together messaging, including a name, a brand promise, a mission, a vision. That is where you start really thinking about how do we articulate the beliefs and values that we know set us apart in a dynamic way. And brand strategy, I want to say this again, if it's boring, it's not as, I don't want to say if it's boring, but if it's something that everybody else does, that you see everywhere, it's likely not a strategy. Strategies are here to differentiate, to surprise, to delight.
Yeah, it should energize you as an owner and your employees.
Yes.
Right?
You should present that to your team.
Because you've done that for us, and that's the best part of it.
And we just started, right?
Yes.
And so if you present that to your team and they're not fully on board and they don't think this strategy makes sense, you got to go back to the drawing board. So a strategy, you know, it might be like a one-page document that's a manifesto, but you're thinking about how to articulate that strategy through your brand, how to communicate that strategy, and it affects everything in your business model. So on our next episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about visual identity, but you can't build a visual identity until you've done this work with strategy.
Okay. Well, until then.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Unscripted Climb. Please hit that like, follow, subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. And shoot over to our website at theunscriptedclimb.com to learn more about Perch Merch and Oh Hello Agency. You can also apply to be a guest, and our email addresses are on there as well. So hit us up. Thanks, everybody.